In the heart of the mystical woods, where moonlight danced through the thick canopy of trees, lay the Dark Moon Pack, a realm where the shadows whispered secret and secrets bore heavy burdens. Lana Vale, a young girl with stormy purple eyes and a heart heavy with loss, was an outcast within her own pack. Her parents, cherished betas of the Dark Moon Pack, had met a tragic end when she was just 12. Their absence left a void in her life, and the pack turned its back on her, especially the Alpha's twin son and daughter, Adam and Arya. On her 18th birthday, the moon unveiled a cruel destiny. Damn it! I run down the steps hoping my essay for English was on the table in the kitchen. I woke up late again. Why does this seem to only happen to me? I quickly put a piece of bread in the toaster while quickly opening my bag and dumping its contents on the table, organizing it all. I put everything in order to subject and place them back in my bag as my toast pops back up. I grab a plate, butter and jam and spread it over the toast, stuffing it in my mouth as I put the plate in the sink, grab my keys, swing my bag on my shoulder and rush out the door. Today was my 18th birthday. I was finally able to smell and find my mate. I hope they don't belong to my pack. The people here are either dumb, stupid, power-hungry, mindless. Yeah, they aren't the brightest in the book. At least the kids were, and they were the next generation of this pack's history. All I hope for is a good mate to treat me well. I jump into the front seat of my car. It was nice looking and didn't cost much. Now with the inheritance I had from my parents' savings and my own from the job I have from the bar I work at, I make it to the school building with minutes to spare and quickly rush into my first class of the day, which so happens to be mathematics. Well, look who actually made it to class on time, said a voice I knew well enough to be Victoria, the right hand of the Queen Bee. I rolled my eyes. I appreciate the efforts put in to make it on time today, Miss Files. I look over at my human teacher. He has a pleasant smile on his face. Thank you, Mr. Stallam. I walk to my seat. An hour has gone by. The class is almost over, and I couldn't wait to be free of this classroom. Victoria and her minions made sure to taunt me the whole class long. They even went as far as to insult my parents. They wanted to piss me off, and it was working. The bell rang, and I rushed out of class faster than everyone else. Concealing my scent, I went to the second floor staircase. I had my chemistry book, so it was no need to go back to my locker, so I waited out the warning bell here. The rest of my day went like first period. In each of my classes was a good sizable group of my pack who made the class a living hell. It was finally last period, and the most mouth-watering smell hit my nose. I felt my wolf rose awaken inside me. Mate, mate. It was the perfect mixture of rosewood, vanilla, and lemon. I looked around the hallway trying to see where my mate was, when suddenly I was collided into from behind. The smell was at its strongest, so whoever's behind me was my mate, my long-awaited fated pair. I got up and turned, and my jaw dropped. The person who bumped into me was Arya. I looked in horror at her as she got up. I didn't waste a second in running to my next class before she could hear me speak or get a glance at my face. Not only did the moon goddess give me an alpha mate, it was the one that couldn't stand me. This was the cruelest joke she could play on me. This had to be a joke, a very cruel one. Maybe my mate's scent was rubbed off on her. They might have hugged. I knew I was making excuses for myself. My mate hated my guts. She made me an outcast. She made my life a living hell and laughed at my face. She would probably kill me, or worse if she found out I was her mate. One thing for sure, this wasn't going to end well for me. The class went by faster than I would have liked. I walked quickly through the hallways to the parking lot. But of course, those in my pack who went to this school were already there, Arya and her brother among them. Her scent hit me like a ton of bricks, and I saw as she turned when my scent hit her. Our eyes locked. For a second, I would have traded everything as I looked into her olive green eyes. What the fuck? You've got to be kidding me. Look. Look, our mate is over there. Let's claim her, please. She yelled in both anger and shock. It was obvious she wasn't happy we were mates. I cringed inwardly as I tried to walk away, but I couldn't stop my heart from sinking in disappointment from her disgusted tone. If she had just gotten to know me, we could have been great mates. Rose was going to be heartbroken. All she ever wanted was a mate. Why doesn't our mate look happy to see us? There's no way in hell I am accepting you as my mate. She hissed at me. Now all eyes that belonged to my pack were on us. I shifted from foot to foot, uncomfortable with how this was playing out. I wasn't going to show that her words were killing me from the inside out. So, I did the only thing I could. So then reject me. I hissed. Her face flickered in what I could only assume as pain, but as soon as it came, it was replaced with her scowl. Oh, I was planning on it. I, Arya Jackson, reject you, Lana Vale, as my mate. I felt the cords snap, the worst feeling in the word. I felt hollow and incomplete, like half of me was missing. Arya kneeled down on her knees, but never let out a sound. I dropped down, letting out a screeching howl as she tore my heart in half and then shredded the pieces. She got back to her feet and stood in front of me. Mate should love us. Why is mate doing this to us? Why? Rose whimpered in my head. It's okay, Rose. We will be fine. I tried to reassure her, but she whines again, retreating to the back of my mind. No, I am so sorry, but I need time. I could no longer feel her presence. I focused and felt her, but only slightly. I looked up at Arya as she stood over me. You're pathetic. She grabbed me. Her touch was electric. I could still feel the mate bond even after the cord snapped. It was just less present. Shoving me out of the way, she told everyone to fuck off, and then got into her car herself and drove out of the parking lot. Well, this is just fucking great. I ran to my car and peeled out the parking lot. I was nervously standing in front of the crowd as we watched the twins fight for rule of the pack. They would ultimately rule together, but this was a test to see which could handle leading the pack as its face. There were whistles, growls, laughing, and crying. There were only 3 sides to be won: Adams, Arias, or neutral. Naturally, I would be on my mate's side. I whimpered in pain as I thought and was reminded of her rejection. I watched as she was pinned down by her throat, her familiar growl echoing in my ears. Even around all this noise, all I really heard was her. She lifted her hips and slammed them under and into her brother, breaking his leg hold he had on her and knocking him forward. She quickly rolled from under and kicked him in the ribs. Adam quickly rolled to the other side and got back up. A growl escaped from his lips as he returned to his fighting stance, and they circled each other. Arya went for the obvious swipe of his left side, so he turned and struck her leg. She whimpered and shook it off before returning the favor to his right leg. Before we knew it, the twins were in wolf form. Arya's black wolf glistened in the moonlight, her coat a shiny coal color, darker than the darkest night. Adam's was a stormy gray color. The color right before the clouds broke and rain poured down. They fought fiercely now, their huge paws connecting with fur and bones. Arya landed a ferocious bite to Adam's hind leg. He growled, swiped at her face, and backed up. Arya didn't let up though. She shook her furry head and let out a warning growl. She was getting angry. As her mate, I could see it clear as day. Wolf rose to the surface as her eyes turned from forest olive green to gold. Her wolf sniffed the air and turned to me. It was like her eyes could see into my soul. She stepped closer, forgetting about the whimpering Adam for a moment. Now I knew how her wolf felt about us, and it was just Arya being an ass. She quickly closed the distance, and as soon as I blinked, she was in front of me. She sniffed me, and her eyes widened, and a whine slipped out of her muzzle. If Arya was fighting back for control, she wasn't winning. A wolf would do anything for its mate. So while I could, I petted her soft fur and scratched behind her ears, forgetting in this blissful moment that all the eyes of our pack was on us, and only a handful of people knew we were mates. If the whole pack didn't know before, now they did. A wolf would only do something like this for their mate, and that was a fact for all wolves. I looked at her. Go now. Go complete the fight and take your place as one of the alphas. I spoke softly. She huffed and let a whine slip out, but turned back to Adam and took her place as the leading alpha to our pack. The screams were deafening, but worth it to watch my mate win. After everything was a celebration to celebrate out newly appointed alpha as. Ours and everyone's either a little drunk or tipsy. Thanks to our wolves, drinks had less of an effect on us, and it took longer to get drunk. I was weaving through the crowd, and most of them looked at me. Lots out of disgust and anger, others jealousy and hatred. Suddenly, I was being snatched by my wrist and dragged to the very front. Dizzy and disoriented, I stood for a moment as the alcohol that was in my veins calmed down and my vision sharpened once more. "So you are my daughter's mate," said a voice I couldn't mistake. Our now former alpha Santiago Jackson. At his age, most adults can just tell. I looked up to meet his eyes and was surprised to see warm brown eyes looking back at me. He had a hopeful expression on his face. She was my mate. Until I rejected her. Arya interjected. His face quickly went from one emotion to another. Alarm filled his features at his daughter's revelation. "What?" His voice boomed, and I saw Arya wince. She stood her ground and said, "I refuse to have her as a mate. Look at her. She's weak. Who would benefit from having her as a mate?" She looked at me. "Effective immediately, you are no longer a member of the Dark Moon Pack. If you're still here by morning, I'll consider you a trespassing rouge and will have you locked away." She laughed in my face. Tears filled my eyes as I fled the pack house and to my car. Speeding home, I rushed inside looking for my wallet and phone. No point bringing my keys, it'll just make me a bigger target in Rouge territory. I got a lilac duffel bag and stuffed it with notebooks, pens, markers, and pencils, my wallet, phone, and the rest with clothes and shoes. I took one last look at the house I grew up in and ran out the front, concealing my scent. Once I was past the border of the Dark Moon Packlands, I felt my connection to my pack break. I knew Rose would feel it later, so I absorbed most of it as I was able to. It made me slower and weak. It paid its toll on my body. I rose at dawn. I figured out that while I could barely sense Rose, she probably didn't know what was going on, and I wasn't able to shift. I've been avoiding rouges as much as I was able to. It was going fine. I picked up some wild blackberries from a bush. Thanks to my love of reading any topic, no matter how boring, I knew what was poisonous and what wasn't. The moon was starting to rise, so it was time to move. I whipped around to see two rouges closing in on me. I held out my palms flat towards them, but they still growled at me. Oh, great, another pair of rouges that lost their humanity. Just great. They reared back, and I turned on my heel, grabbed my bag, and ran. As I'd been running for most of my days since being kicked out, my stamina greatly increased along with my human speed. I was still no match for wolf form, though. They caught up to me. I ducked, making one who planned to jump on me fly over my head. I punched the other in the face, ducked under him, and ran in the other direction. They growled and howled, but I couldn't see or smell them in the dense forest, even with my heightened senses. I don't know when, but one of them caught up with me. He pounced on my back, digging his claws into my flesh. I screamed in agony. My healing tried to contradict this sudden impalement, which increased the pain 10x. I'm gonna die. Maybe I won't get cheated in my next life. My vision was fading from bloodlust. The pain was fading. I could barely register that the wild rouge had its mouth around my neck, getting ready to snap and eat me with his friend who was to the left side of us. Then out of nowhere, a small group of 4 rouges take the both of them out. The last thing I see as I lose consciousness is a woman's scarred face looking down at me in concern. Aria stood in the excitement and anticipation of the ceremony, weighing heavily on her shoulders. As the Alpha's daughter, she bore the expectations of her pack, her parents, and the legacy of leadership. She had grown up understanding the importance of this night, the sacred bond it promised to forge. She was ready to pounce on her twin to show she would be the Alpha. Unbeknownst to the pack, the rule had changed. Whoever won the duel would be the sole Alpha to the pack between the twins, and she was ready to give her all. The duel between the twins had started, and of course, everyone was howling in excitement and anticipation. My brother's fighting stance was wide, but low to the ground. His pride was his strength, but he could be quite the strategist if he really put his mind to it. But he was also bold and impulsive, which I would use to my advantage. I prided myself on my speed, intelligence, and ability to think quickly on my feet. As usual, my brother attacked first, aiming a direct punch to my stomach. I blocked using my left arm and his momentum to push it off to the side, knocking him unbalanced. Taking my chance, I aimed a kick to his side, effectively breaking a couple of his ribs. He rolls back and steadied himself, glaring at me. I smirked at him, getting back into my fighting posture. The howls around us were loud and becoming even louder as we continued our duel. He attacked first, feigning like he was going for another punch. I realized too late, and he slammed me on the ground, holding me by my neck. I could feel my wolf rising to the surface. She was unusually quiet today. Maybe she just needed a good fight. Adam still has me pinned by my neck, but I'm not giving up so soon. I lift up my hips faster than he could react and slamming them down, knocking him forward. Breaking out of his hold, I rolled out to the side from under my brother and kick him in his ribs. He growls at me as he returns to his fighting stance, and we begin to circle each other. I got haughty and aimed at his side, swiping cleanly across with my claws. He turned and struck my leg. I was caught off guard and a whine slipped through my lips. At this point in the fight, I'm fed up and I'm tired and panting with exhaustion. It was as easy as pulling on your clothes or taking a bath. As soon I found myself thinking about shifting, I had already started. The sound of my bones breaking and reforming their shape sent me back to the first time I had ever shifted. I still feel the thrill of my first shift even now, a lot less painful though. My brother shifted as well, a silent agreement we should hold back no longer. We attacked each other with such ferocity and little regard of damage. Growling, howling, and whimpers of pain could be heard all through the stands of our arena. Our paws were dirtied with blood, soil, and sweat as our blows connected with flesh and fur. I lowered my body as he came in close for another brute force bite, springing forward just at the right moment to bite at his hind leg. I clamped down hard and he howled in pain before swiping at my face with his claws in a desperate attempt to scare me off. I held on, shaking my head so my teeth tore through the muscles, before growling a warning. This fight was taking much longer than I expected. Just then, a gentle breeze blew through, clearing. My wolf Kamatayan, stubborn to the bone though, usually focused, fought with me and rose to the surface, pushing me to the back of our mind. Mate, kamatayan, I smelled my mate's scent. I looked around, no longer interested in the fight with our twin brother. I could not accept the forced rejection my other half made to our mate. I needed to see her for myself, at least once before she would be forced to leave our home. Our bond was fading away before I even got to see her. I sniffed the air again, turning around to face her. She was gorgeous. I approached her quickly, sniffing again, but from the direct source. My eyes widened in surprise. She was a hybrid, and a strong one at that. Powerful blood ran through her veins. I let out a whine. I would have never let her go. She had yet to accept the rejection. There was still time to take it back. She reached out to touch me, and I basked in the way her silky skin felt on my head. I barely felt Arya fighting for control, or the hundreds of eyes from other people watching. I simply wanted a moment with my mate. The moment ended too soon, and she told me to finish the fight. I turned around to face my twin reluctantly. He staggered to a standing position, but I could tell the bite really hindered him. I knocked him down with our body weight, pinning him down. His healing wasn't fast enough, and if he kept fighting, it would kill him. I snarled at him, and he conceded. Shifting back, he bowed his neck in submission. We were the alpha, and the crowd roared its approval. I shifted back, fuming with rage at my mate and wolf. My wolf said nothing and blocked me out, but not before she growled at me from our shared mind. The celebration for the passing to a new alpha had started, and all I've been doing is drinking. There were hundreds of females looking at me with lust, and I was tempted to fuck one. Then something had caught my attention. I noticed my father had found the bane of my existence and was talking to her. I looked at the drink in my hand and downed it, then I walked over. "So you are my daughter's mate," my father said, not even asked, but stated like it was so obvious. At his age, most adults can just tell. I couldn't see the look on his face, but I imagine it was disappointment and disgust. She was my mate. Until I rejected her, I proudly interjected. To my surprise, my father's face quickly went from one emotion to another. Alarm filled his features at my revelation. "What?" His voice boomed, and I winced. "I refuse to have her as a mate. Look at her. She's weak. Who would benefit from having her as a mate?" Rage boiled inside of me at the mention of her. My father was alarmed that I rejected her, not disappointed that she was even my mate. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to get rid of her and forget the fact that she even existed in the first place. I looked at her, barely containing my rage. "Effective immediately, you are no longer a member of the Dark Moon Pack. If you're still here by morning, I'll consider you a trespassing rouge and will have you locked away." I watched the heartbroken look on her face as she runs out. Finally, I got rid of the stupid little bitch that has tainted this pack with her unnerving presence. Finally, she's gone. I smiled proudly, but it quickly fell from my face when I seen how my parents looked at me. Their usually kind eyes were filled with disappointment, anger, shock, and, dare I say, disdain? I had never been on receiving end of one of their glares. Now, I knew what troubling rouges felt as they were tortured for hours. My mother, who had joined and watched quietly, looked at me with sadness. "I didn't raise you this way. She was your mate." Tears were falling from her eyes. I looked around and noticed some partying pack members were watching, so I walked out and into my father's office with my family trailing behind me. My family filled into the office. My brother, the only one not looking at me with disapproval. "Why would you ever do such a thing? Did we not teach you the importance of the mate bond and how sacred it is?" said my mother. I looked at them all. "Of course you have," I responded. "I just won't have that disappointment as my mate. How would she ever make me stronger?" She was nothing but a stain on this pack's reputation. My mother's eyes flashed with anger. Lana Vale was the mate for you, Arya. You've made the wrong choice, but your impulsiveness could have cost us dearly. You need to be stronger, more decisive. Think about the pack, not just yourself. My father, on the other hand, was silent. Do you not have an ounce of remorse for what you've done? My father's voice rang out. I looked slightly to the right to face him. No, I don't regret my decision. I'm sure my face in present seemed as if it was made from stone. I honestly didn't regret my decision. This is what's good for the pack. Can't you see that? I yelled out. He just sighed and shook his head. It felt wrong to be on the receiving end of my parents' disapproval. I remember people cowering at just the mere mention of my father's name without him being in the room at all. How my mother's presence suffocated those who dared to defy them and were eventually forced to submit. I understood how they felt now. Even with him looking calm and composed on the outside, I could feel his presence as it filled the room. It felt unsettling and intimidating, like the air was stolen from my lungs. It took all the will in my body not to shudder or cower. You will see, one day, that you have condemned this pack by throwing her out. He sighed, shook his head and walked out. Mom. She whipped her head around to look at me. No. You have disgraced the honor of the moon goddess's mate bond. She gave you a wonderful mate, and you humiliated her. I obviously taught you nothing. She stood up and walked out without another word. My brother patted my shoulder. I trust your judgment. If you feel she wasn't the mate for you, then she wasn't. He looked me in my eyes. I could see he meant his words. But there were other emotions swirling in his eyes that made me think he was holding back. Yeah, I know. I needed to talk to you anyways. I'm making you head strategist. I need you to reevaluate all escape plans for the pack and also come up with new shifts and positions for the warriors. He nodded and walked out. In the days that followed, I tried to focus on my responsibilities, but I couldn't shake the image of Lana's hurt expression. It haunted her, a constant reminder of the price she had paid to uphold her pride and standing as an alpha's daughter. Mother ignored my existence and glared at me. She acted as if our conversation in the office never happened, but she was stiff and formal. My training sessions with her were bloody. She no longer held back. It wasn't just her, but her wolf as well, as if they designed this as a punishment for their misbehaving pup. Dad wasn't as subtle as her, though. He second-guessed my decisions and cross-examined everything. Paperwork, shift schedules, training sessions. Nothing was out of his reach, and he looked over everything with his overbearing attitude. The moment Arya rejected her echoed in Lana's mind like a curse she couldn't shake. Lana had stood frozen under the silver light of the moon, her world crumbling around her, while whispers and gasps spread like wildfire through the pack. She hadn't expected a fairy tale ending. She wasn't that naive, but she hadn't been ready for public humiliation either. The girl who was already an outcast had just been dealt the final blow, suddenly waking up, not wanting to see any more of her nightmare. What? Where am I? I squint my eyes, still adjusting to the light pouring out of the window beside me. I touched my back, feeling the bandages around my chest down to my torso. The forest should have killed her. Alone, hungry, cold. Her wolf barely responsive from the emotional devastation. But it didn't. Somehow she survived. No, more than that, she endured. She didn't just walk through hell, she made it kneel. Then he walked in with a woman in a white coat behind him. He took one look at her. I like the fire in your eyes. You can join us and survive, or you can go back in the forest where your chances are less than zero. I looked at him closely. I'm staying, I said with my head held high.